Joe Brocious,
I'm here.
Sheriff Dedman,
Here, ma'am.
Director Jorgensen, Colonel Heston Silbert, I know we've got Walter on the phone.
Sorry, Walter Mercer for Heston Silbert.
Okay, Rachel Mitchell.
Leslie Laments on behalf of Rachel Mitchell.
Great. Sheriff Paul Penzone. David Letourneau actually just emailed us that he had something come up. Chief Alanese. Robert Smith.
Here.
Brian Wright. He's here somewhere.
And I just saw a notice. It just popped off.
Oh, he did. Okay. There, he's back on. Brian Wright, can you hear us? And Brad Conley. All right. Brian, I see you up on the screen, so I've marked you present. All right. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, next up, we have a review of the June 17th minutes. Anyone have any questions or edits on the June 17th minutes? If not, if I could get a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the June 17th minutes.
Thank you, Robert, and a second.
I'll second.
Kent, thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next up, Director McGuffin, review of a lot of items.
Mr. Chairman, members, good morning. Chief, I'll try to get to it as quickly as I can here. Starting out with some budget-related matters, I just wanted to follow up from the last meeting. The ISA that the board approved for $170,000 was transferred to DPS. That was for vehicle builds and the database subscription portion that they were paying. And kind of following up on the subscription, DPS has been trying to pay Planet Technologies for that subscription. It's been a little bit difficult based on some state procurement bureaucracy, which is not DPS's issue at all. We were working on that as recently as Wednesday. I'm confident that it's going to be paid. It's just a matter that there's additional, people that get involved that slow these things down. So it's working its way through the process. Nobody seems to be concerned, especially Planet, which is good. So it's not affecting any type of our service with the ACT database. State budget adjustments. The state budget was not approved the last time we met. It has since been approved, of course, and there was $130,300 added to the ATA budget. It wasn't necessarily an increase, but it keeps us whole. $109,100 of that went to DPS for raises, and $21,200 was added to the ATA budget to cover state employee raises that occurred statewide. So this was a real benefit for us because normally we're in arrears when it comes to being funded for raises. So at least they're moving in lockstep right now, which causes the budgets to remain intact. Moving on to fiscal year 24 funding requests. I have submitted the ATA funding requests in July. Director Daniels needed that for his meeting with OSPB, which is the governor's budget office, which occurs, those meetings, pre-meetings occur in August. So these are very important meetings. We needed to really have our ducks in a row when it came to funding requests for ATA, and OSPB gave initial approval for us to submit requests totaling $653,791. And so I'll break that down. We went, the Director Daniels went with 3 of the 4 funding requests that I submitted. He went with my top two, which were the priorities that the board has conveyed to me. The first one being vertical prosecution funding. That was really the big ticket item, $431,000. And that would fully fund the cost to all prosecuting agencies that participate in vertical prosecution. It also would add 2 prosecutor positions, one for Pima County, one for Pinal County, and then 2 support people, one in Maricopa County and one in Mojave County. And then finally, it would fully fund the prosecutor in Santa Cruz County, who is currently reimbursed at 75%. They're kind of unique within that program. So that issue is moving forward. The second is the database subscription funding that came out at $154,000. That is year 2, because of course we paid for year 1 already. That includes the subscription plus $20,000 for any possible enhancements that we have and maintenance to the DPS system that is required. The last request that's moving forward is a fuel cost increase for the task force. With fuel prices spiking, and it looks like they're going to stay high, the task force isn't really going to drive any less. So any additional inflation type issues that hit them, such as fuel, will have to come out of their other operating, which just decreases the things that they can do over there. So we put forward a request for $68,000 and change to cover fuel cost increases that we saw, and that was another one that was given the go-ahead. So, as always, it's important to understand that this is not a guarantee of funding. There's still a long road ahead, but it is a crucial first step to get OSPB on board. They're doing a lot of review of these things now, and then what we'll wait for is to see if it makes it into the executive budget in January. Absent that, the chances of any of these things being funded is really minimal. This is kind of the only way. But this was a very positive step, getting OSPB to give us permission to ask for these items. And I see Mr. Volkmer with the hand up.
Jamie, I guess I don't understand how this is going to work with the changing of the guard at the governor's office. This is the first time I've been through where a new governor is taking over. So OSPB is submitting it to Ducey's administration now, but come January 1st, it's going to be a new governor. So are we going to start back over? Does the governor typically adopt the last budget from the last governor? I just don't know. It's really just a question.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Volkmer, I think my understanding is that in these situations, the staff at OSPB is not a complete change out because all of state government does not change in these cases. So there's a lot of people who work in OSPB who have been there for decades. And so I think what happens is, whoever the new governor is will certainly, and their staff will certainly weigh in on these. So these are definitely uncertain times, and it becomes, I guess it makes me certainly uncomfortable when it comes to budget issues, because we kind of know how the Ducey administration has answered in these situations, and what's coming up is an unknown. But I guess I have some confidence in the fact that there will be some stability in state government to move these issues forward. Okay. So if there's no more questions on that, I'll move on to some.
Jamie, I see that Mr. Daniels raised his hand.
Yeah, if you don't mind, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Kent, I just wanted I don't disagree with anything Jamie just said. I thought he gave a very good overview of his impressions are very similar to mine. I think this is a really good sign because, with almost 40 state agencies, they have to go through some process, right, to get the budget ready to go. And so at some level, this is just sort of the fundamental groundwork that anybody and everybody would do, irrespective of who the governor is. Of course, you're right. All of that is subject to an additional review. It's not so much, as I understand it, that the process will start over, as it will be that once the new governor takes office, that person, I guess it will be a she in this case, but she will have her own priorities. I don't have any reason to think at this point that either one of the candidates who we would expect to assume the ninth floor would have much to argue, with these requests. I think these are all very much in line with, and it also helps that the ATA fund has a lot of money in it, right? So it's not like we need to tax the general fund or something like that for these requests. And the strength of that was one large reason I think we were able this time around to get OSPB on board. So like Jamie, I'm cautiously confident that these things will proceed, but we do have to add the disclaimer, of course, that with the new governor means they could decide to go a different route for whatever reason, and it'll be pretty much impossible to know that before the time comes. But that said, I'm really pleased with the case we were able to make. Credit to Jamie and Ann and Amanda and everybody on the team, Frank, for putting together these are really sensible, straightforward, common sense even asks, and they're very much in line with what we also asked for the rest of the agency, given the growth we've experienced in the state, and cementing that legacy of growth and effectiveness that we've been able to achieve over the last few years. Hopefully we're able to continue making that case effectively, and I think we can.
Thank you for those explanations. That helps. I was just unsure, so I certainly appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to some ATA training issues. We were able to send Ann and Amanda to the IATI conference, which is the International Association of Auto Theft Investigators in Chicago in early August. So that was good for their development and for what they brought back. Kind of on some other training issues regarding the ACT database, we have set up a standing meeting with Planet Technologies, DPS, and ATA on a monthly basis. So it allows us to work within the system and then come back with all the right people at the table to offer suggestions and get help. And it's just been, so far, it's only happened a couple times, but it's been very worthwhile. We also have set up a standing monthly meeting between the DIFI and DPS analysts. We're finding out that the analysts are really key in making the ACT do what it's supposed to do for us. I was, initially under the impression that the detectives would really dive into this, but I'm seeing now that I think the analysts are really going to hold the key to pushing out products that help on both the operational side and the administrative side. That's what's been playing out so far. Earlier this week, on September 14th, the Colorado State Patrol conducted 2 training sessions that included some instruction for detectives, commanders, and analysts. I would just tell you that we were not really impressed with what they came forward with, and it's really not their fault. It's not their job to train Arizona on the ACT database, but they haven't had to do that, and so we're seeing a real gap in for agencies onboarding being able to be trained in how to use ACT. So a lot of this we're kind of going by just working within the system and being able to spot some irregularities or things that we'd like to see different. Again, the analysts have been extremely helpful to us in that regard. So we're struggling with the training a little bit, but I think it will come around, and in the next few months, we will probably have a much better handle on what's going on. I had mentioned to the board before that I was considering sending a group to Colorado for in-person training. I'm kind of rethinking that at this point. We'll see what the next few months hold. There still may be value in that, but I'm just not confident in that at this point. So we're going to kind of put that on the back burner. Also, I want to cover one success story from ACT so far. Without getting into a whole lot of details, I'll just tell you that a task force detective was out with a stolen vehicle. It had a fictitious plate on it, and the public VIN was covered. So there was really no way to identify the vehicle. Before ACT was in place, what would have to happen is we would have to research that vehicle using make, model, and color, and we would do that with a PDF spreadsheet that is produced from ACIC, and that's a 1,700-page document. It contains every single stolen vehicle that's in the state still in the repository of ACIC. So it's cumbersome to work through, not impossible. I think they probably would have been able to identify the vehicle eventually, but in this case, they put in the parameters as far as 3 months back because they knew it was a recent stolen using ACT, and then just searched on the make, model, and color, and they got 2 entries or 2 results that came up. The result one was a recovered stolen vehicle, so that left 1, and that ended up being our vehicle. So it just showed us how efficient that system is, being a searchable database, which is exactly what we were looking for. And in that case, they were able to put surveillance on the vehicle, followed it to a location, arrested 2 people, and the standard, guns and weapons came out of that as well. So that's the kind of thing that we're hoping ACT will do for us, to just make people more efficient and allow them to use the data in ways that we have never seen before. The data that we're receiving within ACT is becoming more accurate as we work with Planet to improve functionality of the database. Again, these are the, I give all the credit to Mary within the DiFi, the analyst, and Michael over at DPS, because they are the ones that are using the database more than anybody else, and they're figuring out how it can be improved, and they're working with Planet to put those improvements in place. The data will also improve as agencies become more location compliant. As you know, that DPS has given agencies a matter of time to become compliant with using those data, or the location data fields. And so January 31st, 2023 is the drop dead date. All agencies have to be compliant and entering in locations of stolen vehicles and recoveries by that date. So they are slowly working, excuse me, and once everybody becomes more compliant with that, then the location, our maps will improve. So the data just keeps getting better and better. And then last meeting, I did not really want to move through the kind of a demonstration of the ACT database because we weren't really familiar with it yet. And this time, I'm not going to go live on it because I think that's cumbersome to try and work through it and move the mouse and things like that. So what I'm going to do is just show you some screenshots and maybe discuss that. So if I can get Amanda, if you will pull up the and present those shots. Okay, so basically these slides are screenshots. They're not live, and the data that we see in ACT can be delivered in multiple ways. I have chosen the graph option because it's just much more visually appealing for an audience to look at. But just understand what I'm going to show you here is kind of tip of the iceberg. This is not a by any stretch a demonstration of the system, but I think this is probably the most visually appealing and kind of shows you what I want to show you. We have picked a 3-month period, but of course we could have picked yesterday if we wanted to. That's the type of real-time delivery we have with this data. And we chose June, July, and August of 2022. So it's all very recent data. And then just understand that ACT offers far more tools and data segments than what I'm going to show you today. This is simply an overview. So with the first slide, This is what our total stolens look like for June, July, and August. That's represented in blue. And I know that the numbers may not jump off the screen at you, but you can see where they are. And then the orange, yellowy color is recoveries. It's interesting to note that there were 5,426 thefts during that time. This is statewide data. Total recovery 2,975 with a recovery percentage of 55%. Like any statistic, you need to know what you're talking about. And so in this specific case, those recoveries only represent recovered vehicles that were stolen in the same month. And that might be valuable at some point because we know all of, we know the connection there, but it does not represent every vehicle recovered. So these are some of the anomalies that are surfacing out of ACT, and it's all good information. We can certainly figure these things out. You just have to ask the system the right questions to get the right answers. Again, these are all things that are being figured out by our analysts as they're working with the data. In the next slide, we ask Planet Technologies to do theft areas. I mean, it's part of the system, and Colorado, for example, has separated their state into a lot of system theft areas, but they have 64 counties there. So it really didn't work necessarily for them to do it by county. I think it works pretty well for us by county. And so we asked them to make our counties the theft areas. So it gives us something to look at here. There's really no surprises in this graph. Maricopa County, the big volume leader, followed by Pima County. The one thing that is interesting here is the none, which is the third, 357 represented in that case. And the reason for none is because we don't have location data in those. Again, this problem has a shelf life. It's going to go away as of early next year, but right now it's still showing it that way. And we could do the top 15. We could do any number of things, whatever we wanted to look at there. So the next area is the theft top 10 theft city. Again, we could look at however many numbers of cities we wanted to go. We could drill this thing way down. There's really no surprises here, maybe with one exception. Phoenix being the leader again, Tucson, and then everything that you see here appears in Maricopa and Pima County, with the exception of Yuma. So this is just an example of when you can actually see the data represented this way. We kind of expect what we see here, but Yuma was kind of an anomaly for me, and it might give investigators or staff at ATA or the board, an idea that why is Yuma represented in the top 10, and what can we do in Yuma? Do we need a vertical prosecutor in Yuma? So that's just, I think, the advantage of what we're going to see going forward when we can actually see the data represented in this way. With ACIC, we had no ability to do this. The next slide. This was another one where just being able to see the data showed us some things that we really weren't aware of before. There's no surprises, Chevrolet Silverado, F-150s, Honda Accord, Honda Civic being in the top 10 make and model. But there are a couple surprises on here that we saw when we could actually look at the data, and those are the GMC Savannah, which is highly represented here, as well as the Ford E450. Some of us didn't even know what an E450 was. But that one, the Ford E450 are actually U-Hauls. That's what U-Haul uses as their vehicles. And so Mary over at DiFi, the analyst, did some work on this earlier this week, and she confirmed that those are, by and large, U-Haul vehicles that have been stolen. The GMC Savannah is a delivery van. So I don't know that would be all from like one corporation. My guess is it's not, but perhaps like an Amazon and some of these other delivery services use these type of vans in their fleet. We would not have known this this type of data before without being able to see it. And so this just opens the door and tells us that, you know, maybe there's some work to be done with U-Haul to figure out why these vehicles are being stolen. Is it more administrative, you know, with late returns, things like that? The same with the Savannah. So I don't have answers for that. The one thing I do know is that they have a pretty high recovery rate. Mary pulled that information for us, and both of those seem to be about 83% of those vehicles in the last 3 months have been recovered. So it's just really interesting. You know, we're in the infancy of this now, but when you can see the data displayed in these ways, it brings a lot of questions that could have some really interesting answers. So the next slide. You know, the location is really what's going to put dots on the map. This is a really high overview of this. You'll see that there's circles on there. Right in the center of Phoenix, there's a red circle. Those are clusters of stolen vehicles. The yellow are the next highest volume of clusters of stolen vehicles, and the blue are clusters which are less volume. So there's really no, you know, surprises on a map like this. These maps are going to get better as far as being able to, you know, because we have a heat map, not just a kind of where it's happening, but we also have a heat map which will display. They're just going to get better and better as agencies become location compliant. The next map is a little bit closer view. And so it just, you just understand that we can drill this thing down. We're showing you kind of a statewide version, but you can just keep going down to where all of these things become individual theft incidents. And the next map. Amanda, if you can pull the next map. Okay, I think there's one before that, Amanda. Yeah, so this was just an example that when you click on this stolen square individually, it will bring up what that theft data is for that vehicle. And you can drill this down too. We can find out what agency took the report, what the report number is, things like that. So again, just really valuable information at an investigator or analyst's fingertips. The next slide is the system has the ability, and this really isn't a great example because we're so far out. You would see this a little bit differently, but in order to show the scale, we needed to show it this. This is one single stolen vehicle that was recovered. It was stolen in Phoenix and recovered out near Apache Junction. So that represents one vehicle. But the interesting thing about this functionality is that, you know, for example, if we were to see a cluster of vehicles being stolen in Flagstaff and all being recovered in Apache Junction, it just gives an investigator, you know, the thought, hey, maybe there's something going on here. Maybe there's some sort of an organized ring that is stealing vehicles out of Flagstaff and moving them down. Depending on especially what their status is. Are they being chopped in Apache Junction? Are they being just abandoned down there? It just gives an investigator another lead as to something that might be happening. So all of these things are just really interesting to us, and we're just going to keep diving into this and then making it more useful for us. The last thing I'll show you that Amanda's going to pull up is what they call the Watcher. And so this is another piece of functionality within ACT. The things that you see this morning, or the things that you see listed on the top there, those occurred this morning. There's a theft. So, when you look at where we have come from and where we are now, where we were waiting up to 21 or 22 months to get stolen vehicle data, and now we can see recoveries and thefts of what occurred this morning across the state. And there, of course, you can see that they are marked on the state too. So it's just, I don't know, we're really happy with what's going on right now. And we think it's making great strides. So, Mr. Chairman and members, that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you for that presentation. Good information. One question I have on it is, eventually will each individual agency be able to access ACT and do their own analysis and look for data, or will we have to go through DPS?
Mr. Chairman, members, it's my understanding that there is no limit on the number of people that can be given a username and password. And there is also not a requirement for any type of certification to be on there, because there's not criminal information, criminal history information contained on it. So I believe anybody who would want access, we would want them to be part of an agency. But I think anybody could have that.
That would be just my next suggestion, is once you guys feel comfortable in the capabilities, then maybe we offer a training class for our analysts and or detectives to know how to access the system and look for information, because I think it'd be really beneficial, like you said, having timely information and especially seeing the trends. It'll be good to share that once we're ready.
Absolutely.
Anyone else have any questions? All right. Thank you, Director. Next up is Frank Sabalas with the financial update.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Let me share my screen with all of you. Second. Okay, the fund balance at the end of August of this year was $11,092,323. I want to talk about our revenue, and I kind of did this a little differently than I normally do, because I want to talk about the 2021A revenue. We brought in $3,500,628. But this was the part that was really surprising, to see what we brought in 22A assessment. We brought in over $3,614,915. This is about 3.25%, a little over 3.25% increase from that assessment period. So it's huge. It's probably actually the largest increase I've seen since I'm in part of ATA. Now, with that being said, we're clearly on track to probably bringing about $7.2 million for the assessment this budget year. And I also can tell you this, that typically 22B assessment, the second assessment that we start in January, is usually higher than the first assessment. How much higher? Maybe about 40,000 is what it's been. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. Our investment income, right now, it was about $10,473. So right now we have about $3,625,388 in revenue for ATA. What have we spent so far? So far, we spent about $52,202. That leaves us about $647,198 remaining, and I'll talk about that in our expenditure plan here shortly. Now, the grant category, we spent $1,318,611, leaving us with $4,091,689. And the numbers have increased because for the task force, because of the salary increase. The SIMS fund, we still have the $1,432. Any questions so far? Okay. Now I'm going to switch over to the expenditure plan. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I know it's hard to see. Okay. So right now, this is what we've spent, and this is what I'm planning for us to spend and receive the remainder of this year. I'm going to point out the big pieces. Right now, we are in the final steps of the ATA audit, so we should have hopefully a rough draft of that audit for ATA within the next 2 to 3 weeks. This is the first audit as a combined agency. The last time the auto theft had an audit done was in FY20. It was actually Art's last audit before him retiring. So a lot has changed with the Auto Theft Authority and DIFI becoming one. So we're very excited to see what the results are from Heinfeld and Meach. So right now we have encumbered, the Heinfeld and Meach has been encumbered, so we have that taken care of. But the biggest change here is $3,000. We are anticipating some rent costs for the agency. It's not going to be very much, maybe about $2,500, if that. If you get down to the very bottom, this is the task force, and you see the $27,275. That is the increase for payroll that we just finally got permission to start moving money around. And since second quarter is just 2 weeks away, we're just going to do everything all at once. So they'll be whole from first quarter and second quarter in 2 weeks. There is about some money down here that we have set aside. We're still working on how we're going to spend the extra funds that we have received from the budget increase. So Mr. McGuffin is working on that. But I have it placed down here so we know that we are not going to be turning in $85,000 at the end of this year. I will tell you, but at the end of the year, the fund balance will be over $10 million at this time. Any questions? All right. I do need a motion to move forward with my expenditure plan as set forth.
Motion to move forward with your plan as set forth.
Thank you, Robert. Kent, you got a second?
I'll second as soon as you call for it, Chair.
All right, thank you. All in favor of approving the plan as proposed, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, Frank.
All right. Well, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, that's all I have to report today.
All right, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anne, grant and public awareness.
All right. Mr. Chair, members, my report will be pretty light today before I turn it over to Amanda to go over some of the campaigns we've run. So we are, all of our fiscal year 23 grants have been funded. The vertical prosecution grants are all under contract and their first quarter payments have all gone out. Thank you to Frank for that. And we are in the process of doing our next round of grant contract compliance reviews. So presently we have Maricopa County Attorney's Office and Mojave County Attorney's Office getting us documents for it'll be the fourth quarter of fiscal year 22 that we're doing the review on. So those are going along and I'll present those at the November board meeting. So any questions on that before I turn it over to Amanda, who's going to display some of the outreach and campaigns that our division has run? Nope. All right. Okay, Amanda, I'll let you take it away.
Good morning. So one of the things we haven't really focused on, or at least reported a little bit before on my presentation, is our social media presence. So we wanted to go ahead and sum up some of our information that we have to make sure that everybody knows exactly what we're doing when we're running our campaigns. So right now what we have on the board is, this is our title, AZ Auto Theft. You can use that to look us up on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram on there. As of 2020, when we combined with DIFI, we started gathering statistics for the Arizona management system, and we started tracking where our levels were in growth. As of July of 2020, these are the current following we had on all and each platform. We've closed out fiscal year 2022 with an increase, as you can see here. And on this next slide, we'll see the actual percentages of the increase on each platform. So the short portion is we are very successful in our social media gatherings. Overall, we're up about 57.57% on each platform. Now, we do have a couple additional platforms we do, but they are mixed with DIFI. So pertaining to auto theft, we're sticking right here. Some of the other things to know is when we say that we run a campaign, our campaigns are considered 5 posts. This includes any ads we create in-house, videos we're choosing to share, or any shared stories on a same subject matter. Our goal when we're ever trying to communicate is we want to educate and keep the discussion alive for auto theft and auto theft prevention. A good portion you'll see on most of our ads and information is driving traffic to our difi.az.gov website. One of the things we carried over in the conversion was our AZ Watch Your Car. You see this in a lot of our promotional items when we're out and about. And so that right now, you can go into AZ Watch Your Car, lands you right onto the auto theft pages of the DiFi website. Again, we still have Watch Your Car program. So another good portion of what we do is bring awareness to this program and the availability to the Arizona citizens. Since our last board meeting, we ran a campaign in conjunction with IATI, the International Auto Theft Investigators Association, and the theme was Prevent the Theft campaign. We have 2 interactive graphics. Both are featured on our AZ Watch Your Car website right now. If you go ahead and click over them, and these don't work on this one, but different items will pop up with little tips and techniques on how to keep something safe. We've done both the external and internal threats, as well as combined this with stories, various ads. I've got 2 ads here. One of the things, though, we did differ with this campaign in IATI is IATI uses Puffer. Puffer has a lot of things on there. This is about cars left running. Well, Puffers refers to the smoke you see when it's cold outside. That's not a problem we really have here in Arizona. So we've renamed them to jump-ins. Anything that's left running, people jump in and take off in the car. So you'll see some slight differences, and you'll see some for the July auto theft. In August, we ran a campaign, a short campaign for Watch Your Car. We just wanted to let folks know that we were still out there, we're still promoting this program, and that they can sign up through the AZ MVD Now system. Now, we are driving traffic to our website, but when you go on to our AZ Watch Your Car and Watch Your Car program page, it does have links to the AZ MVD Now, as well as give a quick summary of what that program entails. For July or September, right now, currently you'll see in our pages about coffee. Everybody's been talking about the pumpkin spice coffee that comes out in September with the hopes that the weather's going to get colder. Not there yet, but what we're doing is just getting on that bandwagon, using that promotional item to remind people that if they are stopping for coffee, we don't want them to leave their cars running. You know, everybody's using those mobile apps, jump in, run out, come get their coffee. Well, these are great spots for opportunist thieves. So we wanted to go ahead and just re-solidify as you're looking for coffee on there, that we have them. Now, one of the things to mention is anytime we have any of these ads, anybody's able to share them. Anybody's able to take them. While we create them here in-house, all we ask is that you don't override the auto theft logo. Just add your logo to it. Make it a partnership in conjunction with it. In summary, some of the other things to take note on our social media is that we do only organic. We do not pay for any ads or placements. So any of the words or information that we're using are purely what people are looking up. They're either fans of cars or fans of auto theft. They're already liking us on our pages and such like that. There's a whole bunch of different reasons why they have it. One of the reasons we ran coffee was, again, people are talking about coffee. So anytime they click on it, they're going to see that it's going to jump up on their page through each individual page and their algorithms. Right now, we've got our reach for the last 90 days pulled through September. We are up on Facebook. We are a little bit down on Instagram, but we are up again on Twitter on there. LinkedIn is a little bit different. They don't measure necessarily your interaction or how many people that ad was seen. They only count just what people clicked on, what they saw. And in this case, we're a little bit down on 48. So what this portion is if you're out there, you're on social media, go ahead, visit our pages. If you could give us a like, give us a share, that'll help us move all of those numbers completely up. Mr. Chairman, Board, this concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Amanda. I don't. Anyone else?
Good
All right.
job. Thanks,
Appreciate
Amanda. One last thing I wanted to add is we are getting requests for promotional items and to support GAIN events that are happening again since the pandemic. And so I know I've got a few agencies I'm working with. I know Amanda has too. So we want to try to provide as much support as we can to those PDs that are back doing those events. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Amanda. Next up is me. Law Enforcement Subcommittee report. I have no update. So moving on to Robert, Public Awareness Subcommittee.
No update beyond what was already discussed.
Thank you. And Legislative Committee.
No update.
All right, appreciate it. And I'll throw it back to you to help with the vertical prosecution update.
All right. I think we've got Leslie Lemens on the phone, Maricopa County.
Hi, Ann. Yeah, it's Leslie with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. I don't have any updates at this time.
All right. Thank you. I know we've got Nick Hartman from Pinal County also on the line.
Yes, and Nick Hartman with Pinal County Attorney's Office, Chairman Board. I did want to update on typical things that I'm seeing recently. Seeing a lot of in jails, but a lot of auto thefts from out of state, and a lot of auto thefts consistently from out of county, either Pima County, the original stolen jurisdiction, to Pinal County, or Maricopa County to Pinal County. So seeing a lot of either crossing jurisdictions, and I've been working with the other auto theft attorneys, talking to them about open cases, and if they're committing crimes in Maricopa County and committing crimes in Pinal County, usually we have several open cases. So we've been working with them, going back and forth, different court dates. But a couple outcomes that have recently occurred. I've talked a lot about State versus Nico Biarco. He's a well-known across Pinal County. Task Force had one case with him, and then there was a lot of Apache Junction Police Department contact with Nico Biarco. Basically, his MO was to steal vehicles and then flee to the reservation, either via stolen motorcycle or stolen car. And then once he got to the Gila River Reservation, most of the time the police departments either had to pull off or were unable to continue their pursuit or lost him. But the task force actually got information where he was located in his last case, kind of surround the house, pursued him on a stolen motorcycle, and was able to get him. And task force was the one that apprehended him finally after his 3 cases before that. He was fleeing on a stolen motorcycle. So I had a total of 4 cases. The most serious case happened in the high school parking lot. I've talked about this, where Nico Biarco was caught by the victim trying to steal his truck. Nico Biarco had a gun and pointed the gun at 2 of the victims. Nico Biarco recently accepted a plea agreement, kind of wrapping up his cases for 20 years in the Department of Corrections with a Class 3 theft of means of transportation supervised probation tail. So when he gets out after 20 years, then he'll come out on probation. He hasn't been sentenced yet. Obviously, I'll argue the max probation based on the violent nature of one of his cases, as well as he pled across the board on all of his other cases: possession of dangerous drug, attempted theft of means of transportation, theft of means of transportation, armed robbery, aggravated assault. Shockingly, he really didn't have any priors outside of the possession of drug paraphernalia, and then kind of stacked up all these cases very, very quickly. So we think that's a great resolution for 20 years in the Department of Corrections. I've talked to former captain of the task force, Captain Ettenmeyer. He contacted me because he wants to do maybe a public relations release on this case, just working with all 4 cases, as well as working with the interesting jurisdictional issue with the reservation. The second case is State versus Caleb Kirk. This defendant was also a task force case. The defendant had 3 open cases. One was a 3-car burglary. The second one was possession of dangerous drug and an MIW charge. And then the third case, the most severe case, was the task force located a stolen motorcycle surrounded him at a gas station. He hopped off that motorcycle, fled, and at that point, the task force detectives led a pursuit on foot. He was grabbing at his waistband. Luckily, Detective Warner was able to deploy his taser. He deployed his taser because there was no signs that he had a firearm on him. He deployed that taser, hit him just as he was raising up his arm with the firearm. So that could have been a real bad situation, obviously. But luckily, there was tons of detectives on scene. Detective Robinson provided great cover for Warner with his firearm. At that point, they were able to apprehend Caleb Kirk. That defendant recently took a plea to 15.75 years to 25 years, and that will be flat DOC time. So no 85% time or anything. He'll serve every single day of that sentence. He hasn't been sentenced yet. Obviously, I'll be arguing for the 25 years just due to the violent nature of his offenses, the various open cases. He does have a variety of priors. However, most of them are possession of dangerous drugs. Before that was kind of taking an idea of another, and then before that was a theft. So there was really nothing signaling kind of the violent nature of this defendant outside of these cases. He also, this also consists of a theft of means of transportation probation tail. So once again, after he serves that DOC time, he'll be coming out on probation, hopefully be adequately monitored. He also pled to the 3 vehicle car burglaries. The victims were very happy with that, as well as he pled to the possession of dangerous drug and the misconduct involving weapon. And once again, on the third case, the aggravated assault on an officer, class 2 felony, and then theft of means of transportation, class 3 tail. The third case is State versus Gregory Romans. This was not a specific task force case. However, Deputy Abernathy was the case agent on the case. He's a former task force detective out of the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. I work very closely with him. He's in constant contact, and he just can't shake the auto theft, so he's still pursuing those, and has great specialty in that. For this defendant, he pled and was sentenced to theft of means of transportation for 6.5 years in the Department of Corrections with a 5-year probation tail. His counts were theft of means of transportation, unlawful flight. Deputy Abernathy pursued him in the vehicle, and then at that point he fled out of the vehicle and pursued him on foot and was able to apprehend him after he ran into a house of a friend. He also had a weapon on him. His priors kind of ranged, once again, nothing really sticks out outside of a forgery, taking ID, and theft, and then decided to escalate to the theft of means of transportation, fleeing from an officer, and misconduct involving weapons. But I think 6.5 years Department of Corrections is appropriate with the 5-year probation tail. He also was well known in Maricopa County. I talked to a couple detectives at a AADI meeting about him, that they had other cases with him in Maricopa County, older cases, but he stuck out. So I think it's an adequate sentence for him. And that's all that I have to report. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Nick. We have, let's see, Matt Ashton and/or Brad Terrace from Pima County on the phone.
Hello, Chairman, members of the board. Good morning to everybody. We had a sentencing on an Arturo Romero recently. This was a task force case that he committed while he was on release for another task force case. In this case, when they caught up to him with this, I just muted myself there briefly, but when they caught up to him with the stolen Dodge Ram, he tried to, ram his way through their vehicles as they were blocking him in. Fortunately, they were able to hold the line there kind of, and were able to keep him boxed in, but not before he was able to push one of the vehicles, almost striking a couple of the detectives. So he was charged with aggravated assault on law enforcement, as well as the auto theft and narcotic sales for the 800 fentanyl pills that he had with him. He was sentenced just recently. Between myself and the Attorney General's office, who also had a case on him, we asked for a total of 14 years, but Unfortunately, Mr. Romero got one of the luckier draws in terms of judges here in Pima County, so to speak, and he wound up only getting a sentence of 5 years.
All right. Is that it, Matt? You're all set?
That's all we have today. Thank you.
All right, great, thank you. And lastly, we have Tori Bryant with La Paz County Attorney's Office.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. I have 3 cases I would like to highlight that are scheduled for trial in the next few weeks. 2 are against defendant Jennifer Reed. One is for attempting to sell a car that was stolen. She does not have any supporting evidence to demonstrate that she legitimately bought the car or that she had the keys to the car. She was offered a plea where her second case, which is also for trafficking in stolen property and theft of transportation, theft of means of transportation, that second case would have been dismissed, but she decided to go to trial on both of them. So we will see what the outcome is. The second case involved a John Deere ATV, and that was taken from the city of Wickenburg. So again, she did not want to accept the plea, which would have had that case dismissed, and we will be going to trial in the next couple of weeks. The third case is the state v. Andre Vaughn, and that involves an Avis rental car. One of the dilemmas with the victim, Avis, is that as a rental car company, they don't make photocopies of the driver's license of the renter. They don't obviously make photocopies of the credit card or debit card that's used to pay, and they don't have surveillance cameras in their rental centers facing the counter. So in this case, a fake driver's license was used to rent the car. The name was caught by the Avis security manager as one of the people on their do not rent list due to being investigated for a theft ring of rental cars that are being taken from LA and Orange County to Mexico, and they're traveling through La Paz County. Mr. Vaughn says he has no knowledge of a rental car ring, and the person that gave him the vehicle to drive was his relative. However, that person actually doesn't exist. So he's decided that there's not enough evidence to convict him and wants to proceed to trial. So we will see how that resolves itself. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tori. And that concludes the vertical prosecution report.
Thank you very much. Next up is the Arizona Vehicle Theft Task Force update. Captain Axland.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the following are stolen vehicles, dope seizures, and arrests for June 1st, 2022 through August 31st, 2022. The task force recovered 428 stolen vehicles valued at approximately $6.9 million with 103 arrests. 34 of those 103 arrests had drug charges. The task force seized approximately 15.5 ounces of fentanyl, 9.8 ounces of methamphetamine, and 2.2 grams of cocaine. The task force authored 15 residential and/or business structure search warrants, 1 vehicle search warrant, and 10 electronic search warrants. The task force had 648 other agency assists. The task force seized 12 guns, 4 of which were stolen. Staffing. The federal agency Homeland Security Investigations has expressed an interest in adding an agent to our task force. An intergovernmental agreement has been approved by Homeland Security Investigations and is now in the director's office for final review. Upcoming trends and events. Recently, social media had a trend showing how to utilize a USB cord to steal some late model Kias and Hyundais. Essentially, the video showed how to rip apart the steering column and ignition. The USB was just used like a tool to turn the ignition. We had a spike in these vehicles being stolen. It was made more obvious as the vehicles typically had smashed in windows since social media didn't advise how to gain entry into a locked vehicle. August 15th through 18th, the task force participated in the American Governor's Border Strike Force detail called Operation Able Vanguard. During the operation, detectives conducted a business inspection at a salvage yard in Phoenix, as one of our trackers attached to a stolen vehicle ended up at that salvage yard. Detectives recovered 5 stolen vehicles, 2 which were partially dismantled, and 5 stolen engines. The investigation is ongoing as detectives are investigating this as a chop shop operation. In June, detectives served a search warrant at an automotive business after following an occupied stolen vehicle to the business. 4 stolen vehicles were recovered along with 4 engines, 1 transmission, and a stolen firearm. Detectives also seized equipment used for chop shop operations. This investigation led to 2 residential search warrants served in August. Detectives were able to recover 3 VIN switch stolen vehicles stolen out of Arkansas, 1 stolen motor, 1 stolen trailer with a forklift on it, and 1 stolen GMC Yukon. The suspect was booked on several felony counts. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. I don't hear any questions. Next up, a call to public. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to speak? All right, next up is any reports on upcoming events or matters of board concern? Kent, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I believe under the way that this agenda item is structured, it's also the ability to request a future agenda item, and that's what I would like to speak to, if that's okay with the Chair.
Yep, have at it.
So something that's happening in Pinal County, and I think it may be of interest to AATA, is really a pronounced push to get LPRs, license plate readers, put into our communities. I think in the next 3 or 4 months, between our various agencies, we're going to have over 100 LPRs that are put out. For Pinal County, that's a fairly significant chunk. What I was hoping is we could have a future agenda item where we could have Captain Axland, I'm not trying to put him on the spot right now, talk about various systems that they're using to see if we can start coordinating. I will tell you, Pinal County, we're using Flock. I don't know what DPS is using. I know some of the Valley agencies are starting to do the same thing. It seems to me when we start putting money forward in the future, it may make sense that we request some of those funds, because I think there's an undeniable link to auto theft and really getting those vehicles as they're fleeing. So I would like just in the future to have a robust discussion, obviously with the chair's permission and our executive director's support.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I know we're adding 25 cameras in Gilbert, and Queen Creek just did, both on the Maricopa and the Pinal side, and Mesa, and I think Chandler is as well. So Jamie, I don't know if that would come from you or Captain Axland, what DPS uses at the state level. And I know the East Valley Fusion Center, we use both Flock and Vigilant Motorola's. I think it's used to be, or still is, Motorola's. So maybe an update on what those 2 systems can do, and or I don't know if we have a database to know who has cameras or not. I know Flock provided me with a list of who's using them, and I'm assuming Vigilant could do the same. So maybe a status update.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Volkmer, I agree. I think it's a great item to have on the agenda, and perhaps Captain Axland and I can get together and kind of work out a strategy on how best to present that to the board. But as everybody knows, because the board has been active in some of the smaller grants with smaller municipalities in providing those cameras, we think they're a great tool as well. We wish we had more money to push out on local grants for that purpose. But I think bringing that to the board is going to be good for everybody.
Appreciate it. Thanks for bringing that up, Kent. Anyone else have any other items? Okay, our next meeting is Friday, November 18th at 10 a.m. And with that, if I could get a motion to dismiss, unless anyone else has anything.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Robert. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Kent. Thank you, Kent. All in favor of going home, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right. Thank you all. Have a good
Drive
week.
safe, Chief.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank
Bye,
you all.
everybody.